Hello and welcome to another episode of Topicality. I'm Nishan.
I'm Antonius Brown.
And today our topic is housing at PV. We're localizing it a little bit because PV is having many a housing issue. And it's really important that we talk about this now that tensions have kind of like quelled a little, just slightly. We're no longer in a fit of violent rage. We are now in a fit of quiet anger. And it's important to talk about that here.
Yeah, so housing has made national news. It's been in the Houston Chronicle and a couple of the Dallas Times newspapers. So it's made news in the area in the state of Texas, and it's definitely something we need to talk about, address it, and then talk about some of the solutions to these problems that we have.
Because that's the important thing, solutions. We can't just go and yell at our housing department and expect them to work with us. We need practical solutions, and we need to make sure that we're working with them because we are in the houses. If we just scream at them, we will be living in a shack. That is not what PV students need, is a shack.
Yeah, so we need practical solutions to these problems. We need conversations and dialogue back and forth about what is the root cause of these issues, and who exactly do we need to be mad at?
Yes. Do we need to be mad at our illustrious president? Do we need to be mad at the housing department? Do we need to be mad at ACC? All these are super important questions that I feel like not enough people are asking on campus. But before we get too deep into housing, we have a few current events. We're going to talk about the very interesting bribing scandal that's happening on college campuses, which apparently no one knew was happening until now.
Yes.
Sure.
There seems to be some very rich and illustrious people who have been using their money and faking documents to get their kids into school, faking them to be college athletes when they weren't actually athletes, faking injuries, and then it's going to segue to the NCAA and the recent success of the Prairie View basketball team.
Yeah. But before we get too deep into that, let's just drop a sprinkle of hope out there. Our man Beto is running for 2020. He announced March 16th that he was going to run in a post that he put on Twitter, I believe.
We posted it on Twitter, and then Vanity Fair ran a full article spread about it. So Robert Francis O'Rourke has thrown his name into the pot to be president. On this show, you will hear me call him Robert more than Beto because Beto sounds a little ethnic, and he's definitely Irish. So his name is Robert. But I think he probably has the best chance of beating Donald Trump.
Yeah.
Unlike one of the other candidates, he's more centralist. He definitely has sort of a JFK aura to him.
Yeah.
He's maybe not as good of a politician, but he's definitely handsome, tall, and white. So something this country seems to like.
Yes.
And I think it's his strategy of ground stomping, of campaigning by going to city, traveling around.
He even came here of all places.
Yeah.
And I can't recall a major candidate doing that.
Yeah, it's been a minute since we had a major candidate come to Prairie View, especially running for the U.S. Senate. So the fact that he came to Prairie View and took his time out to talk to us, how buttery and fluffy it was. It was still, time that he took out that Ted Cruz didn't.
Yeah. But we'll be right back with more current events after a commercial break.
Traditions are not made overnight. They are created through a legacy of excellence and a commitment to something much greater. For more than 135 years, Prairie View A&M University has provided students with a strong academic foundation, a unique college experience, and the opportunity to make their mark on the world. This is a place where friendships are formed, discoveries are made, and dreams are realized. This is Prairie View A&M University. Our tradition, your opportunity.
And we are back, and let's talk about this very, very interesting scandal that's going on. There are these rich people are bribing colleges, which is not something we knew wasn't happening, but they are finally getting prosecuted for it. On March 12th, 50 people were prosecuted as a part of a scheme to bribe major colleges such as USC, University of Southern California, Georgia, Yale, Harvard, of all things. And these aren't just buying buildings for a university. That was said verbatim by the U.S. attorney. These are hundreds of thousands and oftentimes millions of dollars being allocated to these universities to influence, essentially bribe their kids' way into major colleges. And we're not just talking about bribery. We're talking about falsifying test scores, sending people to take the SAT and ACT for you. We're talking about bribing major psychologists to tell them that your kid has dyslexia or other mental illnesses so that you have an extended amount of time for your SAT. It's really almost comically vile. There's money laundering through false charities. This is the most dramatic thing that I can think of for rich people to do. And I thought this was so normal that I thought this was legal to do. I thought it was legal for private institutions to accept these big bribes for their rich people students to get into their college. And I was surprised that there's actually consequences for their actions. Were you that surprised?
Yeah, so I was quite surprised by it because like Jared Kushner got into Harvard when his dad gave him a couple $1 million to get his son in there because obviously he didn't have the test scores to get in there. I mean, even Donald Trump, same way, his father gave school money for him to get inside there. So did the Bushes, so George could get into Yale because, I mean, you know how smart George is. But, you know, it seems to be a pattern of people using their money and influence to get their kids into Ivy League schools so they can say, oh, you know, well, Sally's going to Penn, you know.
Yeah,
and it's supposed to
like the money isn't enough to give them an advantage.
Yeah, and it's crazy because people we knew, you know, it's like one of the women from Desperate Housewives was involved in this scandal. Other really rich people who are known were involved in this scandal. And it's kind of crazy the fact that you would think that people this rich would go to these lengths just be able to say at a cocktail party and say, well, my child went to such and such.
Exactly. And for me, one of the wildest things was the Yale soccer coach who got $400,000 to send a rich person's daughter to their soccer team.
Right.
That is taking opportunities from people who have worked harder, who didn't just bribe their way into Yale, and for people who don't have as many advantages and can't just throw $400,000 at their problems.
Yeah, it definitely shows that the athletic side of it definitely shows there's a broken system with the NCAA. There were definitely problems with how recruiting goes on. The money's underneath the table. There was one crazy story of a mother or somebody putting photoshopping a child's face onto a lacrosse team photo so they can show that the child has played lacrosse before, falsifying documents that they went to different camps to say that their child was very good. They got recommendation letters, and they gave the child a lacrosse scholarship when USC does not even have a lacrosse team.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, just crazy things like that. And then you couldn't imagine something like this.
Yeah.
Unless, you know, like they put this on Scandal, I would think, well, you're kind of reaching Shonda Rhimes. Yeah, it's been really insane. But it's kind of a great segue to our next topic, talking about the NCAA. So recently, the Prairie View University men's basketball team has made the big dance the first time since 1998. You know, so it's been a minute.
Congratulations, team.
So glad to have them back. They had to play into the tournament. They play here, I want to say Thursday or Friday, and then if they win, they get to face number 1 seed Gonzaga, which just making the tournament on its own, you know, is a huge step. It's a huge thing, you know. So congratulations to them. Hats off. You know, it definitely should improve some of the best players' draft stocks, you know, and definitely have a pathway for someone to make the league, you know, or maybe play overseas, you know.
And this makes our university as a whole look good.
Yeah, so it makes the university as a whole look good. So definitely caps off to them. But since we're all thinking about March Madness, we're thinking about the NCAA.
Yes, which is madness.
Yes, and we're talking about the bribery scandal. You know, let's talk about the NCAA a little bit. You know, the March Madness is a $1 billion industry, right? So they made $1 billion worth of entertainment revenue. I want to say back in like 2015, 2016 was the first time they hit the $1 billion mark. It is way bigger now. You know, you have Coca-Cola doing advertisements, Nissan, AT&T. Everybody you can think of does advertisements on March Madness. You know, I think Warren Buffett offered $1 million to one person to fill out a perfect bracket. You know, there's a bunch of money in this. But only people who don't see money are the players who are playing on the field. You know, so there's new prospect named Zion Williams, who's considered to be the next LeBron James. You know,
Yeah, I've heard about him.
Yeah, very, very good. Yeah, but he hasn't seen a dime and then he's supposed to play he has to go to college to play for the NCAA, right? So unlike you and me, if we were to like write a paper that was really good, we can make money off of that paper, right?
Yeah.
So we were to I published an article for NPR when we had the voter registration scandal going on. I made $150 off of that, right? I can make money off of my talent. You can make money off of your talent. You can write a script. Zion Williams, who's immensely talented, cannot make money off his talent while he's in college. They forbid him from receiving payment or making money off his likeness. So you can do work, but you can't get paid. Yeah.
Why do they forbid these people?
So the NCAA wants to be amateurs, want to be an amateur league. That's what they said it is. That's why they call themselves student athletes. But really when it boils down to, there's so much money involved in the NCAA, and so many people with their hands are in it, that it benefits them that the students don't make money, right? So it benefits Duke that they can have Zion Williams, R.G. Barrett, and a bunch of other really good players on the team and not have to all pay them, because it takes a lot of money to have a stacked team. That's why the Golden State Warriors are a new thing, because you don't have stacked teams like that, But college, you have that because you don't have to pay the players. You just give them a scholarship. And they say, well, not giving them a scholarship, so that's enough. But you and I both know a college degree doesn't mean you have a job afterwards. A college degree just something that it's a pathway, but it's not a guarantee of the millions of dollars you're making off of them. And it's really sad.
Are you saying the rich want more money and are cheating poorer people?
Yeah.
Tony, I don't know.
Yeah, it's crazy because
hard to believe.
It's not even. It's not just like black people who are getting messed up in this situation. Like Johnny Manziel, made A&M billions of dollars off of winning the Heisman Trophy, right? And I think it was somewhere in like the $60 billion range, right? A ridiculous amount of money that you cannot believe. He's not even playing NFL football right now, right? So he played 2 years at A&M. They made billions of dollars off of him, and then they, because they worked him so hard, you barely had time to go to class. Did not get a very good, having time to get a very good Aggie education, as they say. And then they shipped him out to the league, and now he has drug and alcohol problems, and now he doesn't make as much money. So in the NFL time, he probably made about $5 to $10 million, while A&M made billions of dollars off of him, and he's just a scapegoat. Vince Young is the same way. UT made billions of dollars off of him. They have their own network, the Longhorn Network, right, off of him, just him himself. And he made maybe $20 million in the league, and then he's gone in 5 years. And then people like Jay Williams is a guy who played in the '90s, right? So he played for the Bulls. He got Duke a championship, and then came to play for the Bulls, and then got hurt in a car accident his rookie year, tore up his knee, never played another game, And he made Duke millions of dollars, but did not see a dime of that money, and it's just crazy,
And speaking of not seeing a dime of money, we'll be back after this commercial break to go into our deep dive about housing, because we need some money.
Prairie View A&M University is about the students. Students don't just come here for the education. They come for the faculty, for the creativity, the camaraderie, an excellent standard of living, and the school spirit. They come here to gain something profound and to give something back. Students come for the tradition of excellence. This is Prairie View A&M University. Our tradition, your opportunity.
And we're back once again, and we're going into our nice deep dive about housing, because there's a lot of issues with it currently. Right now in the status quo, there is a lack of housing for most of the students on campus as well as off campus. On campus, there's phase 1 and 2, there's phase 3, there's the View, the Square, and they're building some more housing, but that's not going to come anytime soon. So there's not many places for freshmen or upperclassmen to stay. And with the increased enrollment of freshmen, we're seeing more and more issues with housing a majority of our students. But the big question is, should PV hold the responsibility of housing most of its students? Or should we work harder on improving off-campus housing? Should we work more with people for on-campus housing? We're not sure. There's issues with the shuttle. There's issues when it comes to off-campus housing and on-campus housing. The shuttle doesn't work properly. A lot of the people that are living off-campus don't have cars because a lot of them are freshmen and a lot of them did not want to live off-campus. So the shuttle doesn't work properly. The shuttle can't even fit the large amount of people that are going in there.
Yeah, so it's a quite a sad situation.
Yeah.
So you have more students, you have housing available, and you have a city that's underdeveloped. The city of Prairie View I think it was set up in 1969, I want to say. Yeah, so it's still a young city, and therefore it is not economically developed enough to house these students. So you have some apartments in Waller and Hempstead. That's a further ways away, and that's where the shuttle comes in, because you don't have a car, because many of our students are economically disadvantaged students, so they don't have a car. The first generation students, now they have to depend on a shuttle to get them to and from class on time. I was like that when I stayed off campus in Brookside, 2014, my first semester, and I didn't do well in my 8 o'clock class because the shuttle did not get me to school in time for my 8 o'clock class. You know, so I kept showing I'm late and I missed valuable material. You know, so these are systemic issues. You know, and what really brought this to the forefront was Dr. Sams, who was in charge of student affairs. He's the vice president of student affairs. I sent a letter to students on campus, and then the letter basically said that they were going to change up how they were doing housing here at Prairie View, right? So the UC is for freshmen only. It's centralized in campus. But because we have so many freshmen and we continue to have a huge freshman class, they were putting freshmen in the phases, phase 1 and 2, which you don't know the layout campus. You know, phase 1 and 2 is off to the side, and it's kind of further out.
It's far away, as well as one of the more dangerous parts of being on campus. There have been multiple shootings. No one has been injured majorly, but it's not really the best learning environment for freshmen. Yeah,
so freshmen, you know, just the numbers are showing they don't do well. Random phases, they don't test very well. They don't do well in their classes, and then they many times they don't end up coming back. You know, so they before their sophomore year, and so therefore, because of that, he was going to move those freshmen into the square, right? So he issued a letter saying he was going to do that. Now the letter clearly states that if you already have a lease in the square, you get to keep your lease, right? And then the people who are leaving, so like, you know, our friends Irvin, he's leaving, graduating. Once his bed becomes open, then that would go to either a freshman or a sophomore coming from the UC, you know. And that's how he was going to kind of move everything around, and then basically move upperclassmen to the phases, because he was saying, because study shows and research shows that upperclassmen can handle more apartment-style living facilities, and they can handle living in the phases and can still graduate and do just fine, you know, compared to the freshmen. This caused a big uproar.
Huge uproar, yes.
There was a huge town hall. Students were
voiced their very passionate opinions regarding the university and our housing issues. And I feel like a lot of people miss the point. Where I feel like the letter failed, because at its heart, the letter was not a cruel and malicious intention. I think the more idea is that the letter should have been sent out a year in advance, a semester in advance. You can't, in the middle of housing, tell people, well, maybe you're not going to live here. Maybe you're going to live somewhere you never planned on living during peak picking for housing. Some people had already signed their leases. Some people weren't mentally prepared for any of that. You need some time to wrap your head around moving somewhere that maybe you didn't necessarily want to live, or preparing to move off campus.
Yeah. Also, it's important to understand that ACC, which is the major housing, which is the only housing game here in Prairie View, they're very disorganized, and I have no qualms of saying that. They're very bad at how they handle housing, and because of that, when you introduce this letter that changes up the game, and ACC is also disorganized, and it causes mass confusion, right? There's also it was like a $600 deposit they wanted you to pay.
Didn't pay that.
Yeah, so they were asking for a large amount of money that, again, economically disadvantaged students, that's a lot of money to pay. You know, that's a rent payment. You know, that's a mortgage. So you're asking people to make a big payment for housing that's not fully secured, and the people don't really understand what's going on. And the housing was being snatched up very quickly. The view closed very quickly. The square also was filled up very quickly. So we had the letter, we had a town hall about the letter, and then Dr. Sands issued a letter kind of saying he was reversing what he was going to do. And then now we're stuck here in this issue where we have too many students, not enough housing, and then a city that can't house the students who can't live here.
A whole lot of the blame game.
Yeah.
People are blaming Dr. Sims, people are blaming Ruth. People are not, for some reason, blaming the systematic racism that brought us to this very point in time. We were placed in the middle of nowhere for a reason. There's a reason that A&M was built at a train station. They knew, oh, people are gonna come to a train station and people are gonna seek their education at this place too. Who is coming to PV at our location? There's not a city here. Even, like you said, it was a young city. PV is not a young by any means.
Yeah.
We're a really old university, and we've been stuck in the middle of nowhere for such a long time. And this isn't Ruth's problem. This isn't a problem Ruth created for us. I don't get why so many people are trying to blame her, when in actuality, this is systematic. We've seen this in other places. A lot of HBCUs are in unideal or even racist locations, and while their counterparts are in much booming cities, if you will, Texas State, if you can't find housing on campus, there's an entire city to flow into. It's almost rare for a freshman, for an upperclassman to live on campus because there's so many apartments, there's so many things to do. But here we are with so little housing options. That doesn't seem like something that's a new issue that someone recently created.
Yeah. So like, see, the systemic problem, like there's two bits in that to like kind of unfold. Like one being where that city university was set up in 1876, the middle of nowhere. So College Station was set up. College Station was already a train stop. You know? The train, there's a train that goes through Prairie View, but that is more of an industrial train, not a passenger train, right? So supplies went up and down on Prairie View. They built 290 once they switched from train to cars, and that was only to get supplies from Houston to Austin, right? So, you know, Cypress is slowly moving this way, but, you know, since we've been here since 1876, at that point in time, Houston was just Houston, you know. There wasn't much of the suburbs, and it was all, you know, just woods until you got to Houston, you know. Now, another huge thing is that, you know, any other university you could think of in the state of Texas is surrounded by some form of a city that's old, you know. So even like Tyler College is surrounded by the city of Tyler, you know. Houston-Towson is in the middle of Austin. Texas Southern is in the middle of Houston. U of H is in the middle of Houston. You know, Texas A&M Commerce, Texas A&M Kingsville, Texas A&M Galveston.
Even Texas A&M Central Texas, you know, is in a more populated city than PV is.
And Prairie View was put smack dab in the middle of nowhere because in 1876 we had to re-educate these slaves. But do I got to look at them? So you put them in the middle of nowhere where you don't expect them to become a huge university. You don't expect it to almost have 10,000 students in 1876. You expect it to, you know, maybe, you know, teach some people how to read and write, maybe teach some women how to cook, and that's about it, you know. And that was what their vision of Prairie View was. And now we're a bustling university. Now we're suffering from those systemic racist issues.
And we should be proud that we're a bustling university. The mindset that we need to enroll less people is not something that many universities even have on their mind. It's a really common myth that PV just needs to stop enrolling people. But how do we expect to get more formula funding if we're enrolling less people?
Yeah. So like, and that's another a sort of complicated thing that I won't really get into. But to kind of just put it brief, formula funding basically is how the United States Education Department funds schools. Is a very complicated formula, like algebra, you know. But it does your student population matters, right? And if you don't increase your population, your population stays stagnant, right? Then it will give you less money because, like, well, you've had 8,000 students for the past 3 years, and I think you can do with this amount of money for those students, right? And I can give you less money because you can figure out how to do it, right? Also, with Republicans being in charge, formula funding has gotten cut. They've cut percentage points off of it time and time again, which equals to millions of dollars. You get less. So therefore, Prairie View is in a position where if it want to keep its doors open, it must continue to enroll huge freshman classes. And it's not just a Prairie View problem. If you look at any other HBCU, they've enrolled some of the biggest freshman classes. I think Howard did recently. So did Grambling. So did Southern. So did Texas Southern. So did Tennessee A&M. So did FAMU. All these other HBCUs are enrolling huge amounts of students because they must continue to enroll students because they must continue to get funding so they can continue to keep the doors open because most HBCUs have only a couple streams of revenue. Unlike, we just talked about the NCAA, what's called UT got $1 billion from his football team alone. That is another form of revenue. We do not have that luxury. So therefore, because we must depend on money from the U.S. federal government, we must depend on money from the education department. Therefore, we must continue to enroll students. Now we have the issue where our UC is not big enough, and we have an overflow of students. And that's what we're in. We're in this predicament where, where do I put these students? We have a couple of housings coming up. Phase 9 is supposed to be 500 students, 500 beds, but more so for graduate students. When we're bringing in graduate students because more graduate students you have, that's more graduate research you can do. If you ever realize, professors don't have TAs.
Which is super weird.
Yeah, because most universities, like University of Michigan, that receives millions of dollars in research, right? They have professors who do research, right? Cornell West does research. He teaches classes at Yale and Princeton, but he does research mainly because he has TAs who teach his classes when he's not there.
And schools like A&M get more funding sometimes because they do research that is considered an asset
for
to
the
Texas.
government. For the Texas government or for the federal government. And there are $1 million out there for that. We have a whole farm. There is millions of dollars worth of agriculture.
And we have really smart students that can come back, or we can attract new students for our grad program. We have such a limited amount of grad programs that there's not even a social work or counseling grad degree.
So that's why we're bringing in the graduate students housing, and then phase 10 is supposed to be 800 beds for more so general housing for the general population, right? So this is how we're kind of trying to solve this issue. There's also some plans of Prairie View, buying some land in the city, and then the city trying to bring in some people to build housing. That can go really wrong, as we have the problem we have with Panther Hill, but there's also can go well because we have a co-op with the ranch and with a couple other apartments in Waller and Hempstead. But the issue there is the shuttle, which we talked about. Because now, if I live off campus and I'm forced to live off campus because now you have too many students and I don't have a car, unless Prairie View is going to be Oprah and just give everybody a car, then you got to have a good shuttle system that's going to pick them up and bring them here. I think we have like 3 or 4 vans, very few drivers. They're overworked. The schedule is very hard because you're picking certain people up.
Students can't follow it.
So therefore, you need to increase your amount of buses you have, the amount of drivers you have, and then you have to increase the amount of the time. So it takes A&M and then UT have a bus system. I think like every 15 minutes we have a bus that comes to pick you up and drop you off because parking is very hard. The parking situations we have, you had a good busing system, you could all park at Hobart Taylor and just get bused to the business building to take your classes, and should only be 15 minutes for that to happen.
Yeah, exactly. Do you believe that this giant cricket field that they put in PV will increase our money flow and increase our revenue and make us a more bustling city?
No. Actually, if you look at so John Oliver did a really good piece about this. So I don't have time to dig into the numbers. But you look at stadiums, they don't actually increase revenue very much in the surrounding areas because people come to games, eat in the stadium, and then leave. Or they come, or like when I was growing up, and we didn't have a whole lot of money. We would go and watch the game and then go home and eat, or we'll maybe stop at Mickey D's on the way there or back. But like, don't ask for a burger inside the ballpark because it's too expensive. Unless when the Astros were really bad, then it was cheap. But besides that, that's why the cricket field won't do that because people would come play cricket, maybe eat there and then leave. So therefore, that's not going to help. And your main goal is for Prairie View to build it themselves, or for someone else to come and do it. Also, we have a non-competing contract with ACC.
Very true.
Yeah, so therefore we can't have off-campus. Prairie View is legally bound to where it cannot build its own off-campus housing unless ACC does it. That is a bad contract, and that comes from poor leadership in the past. And then also systemic racism again, because we picked ACC because they were the cheapest because we didn't have a whole lot of money. So we were like, well, we're going to go with you. We're going to have a bad contract. Therefore, we're stuck in a situation where unless ACC builds off-campus housing, there will be no off-campus housing unless the city somehow, starts functioning properly and brings in off-campus housing that is good and not, terrible conditions like Panther Hill, which nobody should be living in.
Yeah, exactly. But we are all housing out for now. But before we sign out, let's talk about a few practical solutions that we've mentioned before. Renegotiating that contract is a major thing. If it is possible, it is extremely important that we renegotiate that contract and that we talk about it, because some people don't even know that's a thing at PV. We need to advocate for increased shuttles, or at least a better shuttle system. We need to make sure that we are also looking to the future. Fixing housing is not going to happen overnight. We can improve it, but the solution will not be fixed today. We are trying to correct long systemic racism. That is not something, as we can see in life, that's not something that gets fixed overnight. By increasing our grad retention, by increasing the amount of grad students that go here and expanding the problem, expanding the amount of classes that we have, we can get more funding from the government and from Texas as well.
Yeah, and also, so like, local elections matter, so look at the people who are running for city council here in the city of Prairie View, ask them about their plans to increase economic development in the city of Prairie View. So like Kendrick Jones, Jonathan Randall was running, right? These people are people who represent you, So I talked to them, asked them about,
I need the same energy this housing crisis got when it comes to voting, because I got a lot of energy.
Yeah, so we need the same energy to voting, hold your city officials to the fire, I vote for you, I pay taxes, you do pay taxes to the city, and you pay taxes to the city, well, how come they're not providing you housing, for this? Because let's be real, no other university houses as many students as Prairie View does. Prairie View houses almost 60% of its students on campus. No other university does. And most universities' housing is for freshmen and sophomore. That's it. You live off campus afterwards. So now we turn to the city. What have you been doing to help fix this issue? And also, we want someone to blame in this blame game. As one of our friend Irvin says, blame who it is. It's the white man. It's systemic racism. It is time and time again of black people getting the short end of the stick, and it's just since the 1960s, actually since the 1970s, actually 80s, when the Texas legislature finally decided to give us the right portion of our money, and then the recent Chancellor Sharp for the regents, he decided Prairie View needs to receive more funding. So it was a recent thing that Prairie View started to receive the funding it needs. So now we can address this issue. It's not going to take, it may take more than 5 years, it may take 10 years, it may take 25 years for we fix this issue fully, right? But this is, something for the long haul. But, also when you graduate, pay back to your university, support your university. This is how we're going to solve these issues, this is how we're going to fix this. There are solutions to this problem.
There are so many solutions. And that's all we have for today. Once again, I'm Nishan.
I'm Antonius Brown.
And that was Topicality. Thank you for watching.
Have a nice day.